Alright everybody, so on today's video we have a crazy night Ubering in Sarasota's worst neighborhoods at night. So I leave Lakewood Ranch, notice his car almost hit the curb. He was drunk already, but we knew that because his headlights were off before we saw him crash into the curb. So the first ride we get takes us to South Sarasota. This isn't exactly the worst neighborhood in the city. It's actually a nice area, but of course you know how Uber works. You got to get started somewhere. Hard to tell from the video because it's at night, but there was actually a car in the median that had spun out on the highway and landed right in the middle of the road. And as I'm driving on the interstate, they're hopping out of the car. I guess it was like a little race car and they had done something stupid and ended up wrecking. So I hadn't even got into Sarasota and already you could tell that it was a Friday night. It's already about 12:15 a.m. and the first person that I'm picking up, self-admitting to being drunk, was inside of this gated community, but the person couldn't figure out how to get out of the community and they eventually ended up jumping a fence to get out of the community. It took the good part of about 10 minutes to help meet this person where they finally jumped a fence and got in the vehicle. The person apologized for being drunk and having a difficult time finding the Uber, and we were en route. It was a female and she was very friendly. We had a great conversation and it was actually pretty enjoyable to have her in the vehicle. Once she found her way to the vehicle and settled in, she was actually a great person to talk to. We hop back on the interstate and continue driving southward towards the Clark Road exit, I believe. So now we are way off in the South Sarasota. But again, we're trying to get into the worst neighborhood. So eventually we got to get a ride that takes us back towards downtown Sarasota. But hey, this is how Uber works. You got to get started somewhere. This ride paid about $14 and she did give me a $5 tip. We dropped this person off in a suburban area and we kept going for our next ride. Now so far everything that was coming in wasn't good, so I decided let me start driving towards US 41. Hopefully I can pick up a ride that takes me towards downtown because again our goal today is to enter some of the worst neighborhoods that the city has to offer. Our next customer was in this plaza right here in Sarasota. And it took, again, another 10 minutes for this person to find our vehicle. So it seems like late at night, I can almost assure probably everyone that I picked up on this evening was drinking to some degree. And finding their way into the vehicle is a challenge for them. So it takes a little bit of patience getting your customer to get into the vehicle. So the customer was somewhere in this area and we kind of struggled to find them. And I almost had to get out of the vehicle and basically find the customer. So again, reoccurring theme, Saturday night, Friday night, a lot of these people are a little bit drinky, so they're going to have a difficult time finding your vehicle. So you almost have to help, corral them into the vehicle. But once they get in the vehicle, they're good to go. You'll notice that just about all these bars, restaurants, casinos, whatever the crap they are going to have police presence. Customer en route, we are now heading towards North Sarasota, the dangerous part of the city. Now, it's a long ride. We're in South Sarasota and we decided to go on US 41, so it's quite the drive. It's now approaching about 1 a.m. and as you can see, the city of Sarasota is empty. And I think one of the benefits of driving Uber late at night is that you don't have any traffic, which means you can get from point A to point B in a reduced amount of time. The downside of doing this night shift would be that of course you have a lot of people, if not every single one of them, that isn't sober. So if you're not a big strong person or you're afraid of dealing with intoxicated people, it can actually be pretty intimidating and kind of frustrating if you don't know how to deal with drunk people. I'm not really good with dealing with drunk people because I've never done it in the past, but I can say that I did fairly well with the people I was given this night. If you look real carefully on the right side of the road, you'll notice that there's somebody with a bicycle with no lights at all driving on the road. There they are right there at that intersection. And that's really one of the dangers of being in Sarasota at night. You have to be very careful because we have a lot of junkies that go dumpster diving at night. So if you ever find yourself in Sarasota or Bradenton late at night, eyes open on the road because we have a lot of people that are just out there. They're drunk or they're high and they're driving bicycles or walking on the road, which means even though there's no traffic on the road, you still have to be very alert while driving in these cities. Now this ride took 19 minutes and it only paid $12 and the person did not tip me. Despite the fact it was long and it didn't pay too well, I took this ride because it took me right through downtown Sarasota and into North Sarasota, which is the neighborhood I wanted to get into because after all, our goal is to Uber in some of the most dangerous areas we could find. So here we are now. We're crossing downtown Sarasota, and very soon we're going to end up in some of the most dangerous neighborhoods in Sarasota looking for passengers to go for a ride. The passenger was a very cool and friendly person. He basically said, anytime you're in the hood, stop on by, drink something with us, and have some barbecue with us. I like you, you straight. Anytime you roll through here, we're family. Alright, so we are now definitely in the most dangerous part of Sarasota at night. We drop off our customer in a neighborhood that definitely deserves some respect in the city. And we decide that we're going to drive around these scary looking neighborhoods looking for somebody who wants a ride. But I just kept getting replies from downtown Sarasota. So after driving around aimlessly through some of the worst neighborhoods in the city, I finally decided to pick up a ride in downtown, which is not too far away. But downtown was crazy as well. Don't think that downtown wasn't crazy. The night hadn't even started at this point. I thought driving around these neighborhoods, trying to find somebody who wanted to ride around here was going to be the scary or crazy part of the night. But it was still early. It was only about 1:10 in the morning. We still had an entire night left to go. This beautiful boulevard right here is MLK. It has been completely renovated. It's still in the north side of the city, which is the most dangerous part of Sarasota, but they're trying to bring in investment, gentrify, and just make it a better community. And as you can see, there's restaurants, bars, you can get bicycles to go from point A to point B. There's a lot of good things happening here. Now we're gonna go into what's known as the Skid Row of Sarasota. And yes, I did say the Skid Row. So after failing to get any Uber riders in North Sarasota after driving around aimlessly through some of the worst neighborhoods, I finally picked up somebody in downtown Sarasota. Now downtown Sarasota is usually open late. We're talking 2 or 3 in the morning. There's still people hanging out. Bars and restaurants are still packed. There's a strong police presence. Overall, the city of Sarasota is very safe. It's one of the few party cities you're going to find that are actually safe in general. Most of the bars and areas where people hang out are going to have paid police presence, so you're always under the watchful eye of the Sarasota Police Department, which is better than being under the watchful eye of the Bradenton Police Department, for example. But again, the night hasn't even started. We haven't even got to the fun part of the night. Right now, we're just picking somebody up from downtown. It's a very short ride, but I know because I'm picking them up from a bar late at night and taking them to a very nice hotel that chances are these people are going to tip me and they're going to be happy and they're going to be the greatest people you ever met on Uber. And it really was the case. So let's go pick these people up in downtown Sarasota. Now, there's a Greyhound station here to the left as well, and that's another Skid Row to itself. And if you go through there at night, there's people sleeping underneath the balcony. So as soon as you go north of downtown Sarasota, you start to have all these little miniature homeless encampments. But here we are, lively downtown Sarasota, very beautiful, clean, and safe city. Let's pick up our customer. So as you can see, even at 2 in the morning, it's very safe. It's very calm. There's police everywhere. There's still people out and about. This makes Sarasota a special place because in most cities in the United States, nobody's going to hang out till 2 or 3 in the morning on the streets because it's usually too dangerous. But as you can see, it's a well-patrolled city where you can actually go and have a lot of fun late at night. Sarasota really is a fun city, and there's a lot of establishments that are open late. One reason that I really liked moving to this area is that Naples and Fort Myers, you're not going to find too many places open till 2 or 3 in the morning. We're kind of night owls, if you guys don't know. And when we're able to be up late and do stuff and go to restaurants and, have a great time late at night, in Sarasota, you have a lot of options. So it's definitely a very fun city compared to everything else in Southwest Florida. So the customer was heading to one of these beautiful new apartment complexes or hotels that are overlooking the water in downtown Sarasota. Ironically, it's the same address where our second to last customer was heading to. So remember this spot because this is where we're going to bring somebody back to again. Now this ride was very short. It only paid $5, but they gave me a $2 tip, and they were very happy people to have in the back seat. We dropped them off at this beautiful resort. I'm sure it's overlooking the water in the other direction. So this seems like the type of place where if you don't mind spending a few extra dollars in Sarasota, you're going to have some great accommodations. So they get out, and we go off into our next customer. Now, again, Uber is kind of weird. Sometimes they send you in directions you don't want to go. So I decided to give North Sarasota's bad, notorious neighborhoods another go. I really wanted to pick somebody up from one bad neighborhood and see what type of illegal activities they were doing or something crazy in the hood. But unfortunately, I drove through here, and this area, despite being pretty crappy, it's all motels, and you got the Sarasota airport. Thus, you have a lot of Uber guys that stage themselves in this area because of the airport proximity. So despite the fact it's a bad neighborhood, and most of the time you don't get rides in bad neighborhoods because it's land between downtown Sarasota and the airport. There's actually a lot of Ubers driving around. In fact, I even noticed that many of the other cars that were hanging out were all Uber. So this area was super saturated with Uber drivers because the staging ground for the airport for Uber drivers is in this vicinity. But in general, this would be a great place to pick up some sketchy type of people, but it just didn't work out. I tried my best. The area near the Sarasota airport is notoriously sketchy, and it really would be the type of neighborhood where Uber ride could be kind of scary, except for the fact that there's hundreds of Uber drivers waiting around this area to catch rides from the airport. So any short ride that comes up easily gets swallowed, which means that despite the fact I tried to get some sketchy rides in this area, it didn't work out. And if I came closer to downtown Sarasota, I would just get shifted back into driving people out of downtown. So I figured, let me go north into Bradenton and see if I can get somebody in Bradenton trying to drive back into Sarasota, and then that way we could end up in some sketchy areas. As you guys can clearly see by the way I'm walking, my body is still completely disformed from that injury and accident that I had. And the lawyer dropped my case after the surgery, which means I'm looking for a new attorney. And it's been really frustrating, not only to deal with being injured, but also with the fact that the doctors actually did a horrible job on the surgery. Then the lawyers dropped me afterwards. So I have been really having like a really horrible last 8 months. It's been absolutely one of the most frustrating periods of my life. But I'm really happy that despite the fact I'm walking all wobbly and I'm visibly disfigured, at least I can start to walk again. I'm always in pain, but at least the pain now is manageable. And it's not that bad. But this is Doña Betty's. They're right in South Bradenton, right across from the Sarasota line. I didn't want to get anything to eat, but I wanted to get one of their agua frescas, their fresh waters. And it's now approaching about 2 in the morning, so it's kind of sketchy environment out there either way. Now, so far, I had about $5 in cash tips, and I used the $5 to buy a drink from Doña Betty. Now, Doña Betty is impeccable. They really are some of the best. But for some reason, on this day, they had ran out of ice, and the drink wasn't cold. It was kind of like mild. So despite the fact I paid $5 for a drink, I actually gave it to a homeless guy that was sleeping on the sidewalk. I figured, well, at least he will appreciate it more than me, because I literally bought this thing, and it wasn't like not like totally warm. It just wasn't cold enough. And I thought, you know what? I'm paying $5 for this thing. I don't want to put it to waste. So here's this guy sleeping on the sidewalk. Let me see if he wants it. Sure, he wanted it. So I hadn't even touched it. So he drank it, and he was happy to get that. So now we are in Bradenton, and the idea now would be to try to get a ride from Bradenton into Sarasota, which is really common because earlier in the day I was working the beaches, and when I was working this area of West Bradenton, I kept getting hits for people wanting to go into Sarasota. So I figured, instead of trying to pick up a ride here, let me try to go somewhere where people are heading to that area again. So I ended up coming into Bradenton. Now, it was already late at night. I was going to stop by a Wawa, use the restroom and all that. So let's get going there. So as I'm sitting at this intersection, I can hear metal hitting concrete with my window down, and I start looking around, and I can see to the left of the screen that there's somebody with a walker stumbling across the road. So here's somebody who's disabled, and they're homeless, and they're in a walker, and they're struggling to cross the road. You can see them here on the right, and again, you would miss these people. Look, they're standing literally on the turning right there. You can see them. I mean, literally, if a car was taking a right turn, they could easily run those people over. And it's somebody who's in a walker, homeless. So this Wawa, which is on Highway 70 and US 41, is absolutely notorious. Allegedly, the story goes that a few days ago, this young girl was in the backseat of this red car, and the driver got out to go inside the Wawa. She hopped in the front seat and stole the vehicle. So that is allegedly the story. I cannot confirm it, but she is being arrested and being handcuffed. In a minute, we're going to see the officer read her rights. She looked very young. I don't know how old she was, but you can tell she was very young, and allegedly she's being arrested for stealing a vehicle. I looked through the Manatee County arrest records, and I couldn't get the details yet. It might be too early. And well, there she is being hauled away to the port. Here in Manatee County, they call the jail the port because the jailhouse is next to the port. So all the locals here, when they say the port, they're talking about you're going to jail. It's like some local slang vocabulary. Whatever the problem was, they did read her rights, and she was detained and arrested. And that's what happens when you break the law. This whole strip of US 41 from Sarasota to Bradenton is one complete crap hole. You're talking junkies, people walking out on the road high or drunk, disabled people, people on bicycle with no lights. This is just one giant area that's unfortunately plagued with addiction and crime. And if you're in the Sarasota area, chances are you're going to go to the beautiful beaches of Bradenton or enjoy some of the other great things the area has to offer. When you're commuting between Bradenton and Sarasota, you may end up in this area that's kind of one urban mess of crime, poverty, addiction. And it's really sad because it's an area that's beautiful. It has so much to offer, but unfortunately, scenes like this are not uncommon. It's almost expected in this part of Bradenton, especially at night.
That's you? I like this music.
So this is the famous and notorious intersection of 53rd or Highway 70 and US 41. In this intersection, people have lost their lives in accidents. People have stumbled out into the road. Buses have hit people. This is just a very sad intersection where unfortunately a lot of bad things have happened. And here you see me turn on my headlights again, not to blind the cars in front of me. You can see another police car going that way, but because again there was somebody on the road and I could barely see them, and I just wanted to make sure I didn't freaking run them off the road. So if you're driving through this stretch of Bradenton at night, it's almost expected that somebody is eventually going to run into the road. This is another little area you have to be really careful because people are back and forth across the road here, and you really got to be careful in this area. I mean, literally the amount of people that would just go out there in the road at night and you could hit them, it's constant. So always pay attention in this part of Bradenton, US 41, because pedestrians here are quite frankly running out on the road and they're not even sober. Alright, so here we are picking up our last customer of the night. Now this person is going right back to downtown Sarasota, back to that beautiful luxury high-rise hotel where we were at earlier. So we picked them up at the Drift Inn. Now I thought this was the last person of the night because I was already tired and I'm like, I've had enough of Bradenton and Sarasota for one night. But after I picked these people up, there was actually another person that I picked up because it just happened to work out. I mean, I was already there, so I figured I might as well do it. And the last customer of the day, I thought it was going to be these people. The last customer of the day was en route to where I was heading back home, so it made sense to pick them up. So in my mind, this is the last couple of the day. Now, there's all types of rules about disability, you know, active disabilities and this and that. You can't really get too detailed into the people you're dealing with because, you know, it's all protected by law, and we want to respect people's privacy. But it's interesting to see people that are drinking when they have other... I can't really get into this, but it was awesome. It was a great conversation, and it's always good to see people having a good time and having fun despite their challenges of the physical ailments types. It was just somebody with physical ailments of some sort, and they were having a freaking great time, and they were great people to have in the back seat. We had a great time talking to them. Again, I have to protect the privacy of the people that are in the back seat. That's why we're not saying exactly where they're getting dropped off, or we're giving you guys a vague idea of what we're doing. I don't want to be invasive with people's privacy when they use my Uber. But I will tell you that the last customer of the night, we grab these people, we take them to that area we talked about, those new high rises over there. And then it's kind of like 3 in the morning at that point. At that point... I pick up these kids, and now again, they've been having a night of drinking, so it took a good 10 minutes to get them in the vehicle, and I actually took the assistance of Sarasota Police Department to get them in my vehicle. There's some type of discussion about who could get in the vehicle with me and who couldn't, because some people did not want to go to our destination. Now, I don't know what our destination was, so at this point, I am terrified, because I'm like, these people are not sure if they want to do this. The guy's like, you know what, I can't really go there. It's a personal issue. So they're trying to figure out who's coming and who's not. With the doors open in downtown Sarasota, at some point, the Sarasota Police Department was like, okay, y'all need to get the crap out of the road. Well, turns out they were going to a gentleman's club, late night, 3:30, 4 in the morning, gentleman's club. And they tipped me very generously. It was very fun to have them in the car. One of the kids did try to punch out my window for some reason. He might have been drinking too much, but they were great. They were fun. They gave me a great tip. And that was actually the last ride of the day. Now, I've never been afraid of law enforcement, but I will tell you, when you do this Uber thing and it's 3 in the morning and you got 4 people in the back seat that you don't know who they are, they're clearly not sober, it does feel very intimidating to see a police car when you know that this could turn out into a nightmare. This whole Ubering late at night thing seems pretty dangerous, pretty sketchy. It seems like the risk definitely outweigh the benefit. And if you're going to do this, I would probably want to be a large guy like me. I wouldn't want to be a female doing this. It definitely feels sketchy and dangerous. And all I made for risking my life and, I don't know, maybe my freedom, Ubering late at night, is possibly $70, including all their generous tips, which were great for this night. That doesn't really weigh out as something you would want to do. But I will tell you that it was so addictive and exhilarating to be out there late at night, dropping the people off in these places, and it really is addictive. So I will probably continue to do this for one, the sake of YouTubing it, two, the fact that it is pretty exciting. It is kind of a thrill, and you don't make a lot of money. I mean, $70 for being out late at night risking your life with every single passenger tonight was possibly not sober. One of them tried to punch out my window for some reason that I don't understand. I told him, hey, not going to happen. And I was very firm. I said, hey, tranquilici, conmigo, hacer it. You have to be firm with people, but it's also good to be tactful, not interact with people needlessly. So if they get out of line, when you say, hey, shh, te me arregla, then they understand that you're not playing with them. The problem with these people is that when you're drinking all night, you get into an Uber and you want to socialize with people, it's really hard not to interact with people. Ideally, these types of people are better left not interacting with them. Unfortunately, at nighttime, everybody wants to interact. In the daytime, people don't want to talk at all, but at night, they're drinking, they want to talk to you, and you have to be a social person whether you like it or not. So the clear elephant in the room is the fact that I'm Ubering in a truck that gets 15 miles to the gallon because it's got big wheels and a lift kit. It doesn't really make sense. And then thus, it would make sense for me to do these very late night runs because the generous tips offset the gas expense. I would overall say that if I had a more fuel efficient vehicle, this could be somewhat profitable. And the people that tell me stuff like, oh, you're just destroying your vehicle, putting miles on your vehicle. Dude, I'm a travel YouTube channel. Do you think it's my first time destroying a vehicle while putting miles on it? This is what I do for a living. And mileage is a huge write-off if you didn't know that. So sometimes people just talk a lot. Do I know I'm destroying the vehicle? Yes. That's ultimately the goal of a vehicle. When I buy a vehicle, the goal is to send it to the scrapyard as soon as possible. I don't believe in owning a vehicle for 20 years. It's going to get no, dude. I change cars every year, and the more mileage I put on the vehicle, the more it depreciates, the more I can write it off, the less I have to pay to the government, if you didn't know that. That's actually why I Uber. That's actually why I also do YouTube travel videos, is because I can write off the depreciation. If you didn't know that, I would much rather give $20,000 to a GMC dealership for putting me in a brand new truck than giving it to the IRS because I bought a freaking Toyota come basura. But I would definitely say that overall Ubering at night, nightclubs, people partying, all of them are drunk. Some of them are definitely not there 100%. Some of them might want to get aggressive, like we had that one person that for some reason got aggressive and you got to put them back in line. It definitely doesn't seem like it's worth it. And it takes a lot of patience because normally the person finds your Uber within 30 seconds. Tonight, I had several people that took 8 minutes to get inside the Uber because they were so drunk they couldn't figure out how to get in the vehicle. But nonetheless, if you're some type of adrenaline junkie who needs $70, remember that Uber gives you the money the same day if you need it or the day after. A lot of people that work and they get paid monthly. Like I get paid monthly through YouTube. So if it's the 27th, let's say, and I don't get paid till the 1st, for example, I got 4 days where I need to come up with some quick money right off the spot. If you're in one of those tight situations, then Uber could definitely save your butt.